on this episode of the Data Nerd Podcast.
AI applications that are being applied to them today, then they're going to be left behind. They're going to miss out on, frankly, a golden opportunity to leapfrog.
I'm your host, Nisar Ahmed. Join me as we explore the inner data nerd inside all of us. Dive into the world of data alongside special guests who not only share their wealth of experience and knowledge, but also unveil what truly makes them data nerds. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a comment wherever you listen. And for all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, head over to the datanerdpodcast.com. In this episode, I'm joined by Ben Jones, co-founder and CEO at Data Literacy. I saw that post that you had, and I was like, I messaged you about this podcast, and I had some ideas in my head on the topics, but obviously AI is what everyone's talking about now. But I wanted to talk about like how this impacts analytics because AI impact is going to impact almost every job and every role, but us working in this analytics space, like how does it impact us? And you've written books on this, and I mean, you're the co-founder of Data Literacy, right? Which encompasses both data and AI literacy. So no better person to
Right.
talk to about this, right?
Yeah, it's fascinating times. Technology is changing very quickly. And I think, like you said, everyone in every job is being affected or impacted, knowledge workers included, analytics professionals included. And that's true of data engineers on the back end. That's true of data visualization experts on the front end.
Mm.
And so, what does it all mean? What's changing? These are the kinds of questions that my students at the University of Washington are asking as well. And so, it's an interesting time to be exploring some of the different alternatives and what they imply for the way we're going to be doing these kinds of activities going forward. So, I'm really curious to see how it all goes.
There's a level of fear as well, is there not?
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you look at the surveys, not only is there a level of fear, there's, I think, a repugnance about AI. Certainly in North America, people very much dislike it, or a high percentage of people do. And so it's a fascinating topic because it's very polarizing. I have people
Mm.
in my network that are really enthusiastic and over the moon for it, almost well, to an extreme degree. And then I have other people in my network that are, the opposite. They're feeling that it's evil and that it's an immoral technology. So, and those are the extremes. I think the rest of us fall in the middle somewhere. Seeing some exciting opportunities, but also, having some very real concerns. So I think we're all kind of in the middle, really.
I think a part of it is fear of the unknown.
Mhm.
And to a lot of us, I know you've mentioned and I've seen you post about this, is AI has been around for a long time.
Oh yeah,
It's not
decades.
something that just came up when ChatGPT popped up, right? This has
Right.
been around for a long time, but most of us have not been involved in AI, particularly in the analytics space, right? And so it's new
Correct.
for a lot of us, and sometimes that instills some fear because we may not be experts at it, and
Mhm.
we may be good in analytics or data visualization or whatever your subject matter expertise is, but then
Mhm.
when it comes to AI, we're like, just we're trying to figure it out. But I don't know. Do you think that's true for most people? How many experts are there?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, certainly there are a whole host of true bona fide experts in AI, machine learning, deep learning. I mean, artificial intelligence is such a huge umbrella term. And as you pointed out, it's been really a field since the 1950s. And so it is not new in that sense. And so It has gone through its hype cycles, AI winters and AI hype cycles and summers, if you will. And so, this is sort of nothing new in a sense, but on another hand, it is new because I think the level of impact is very broad. I think this is what's instilling fear. As you pointed out, people feel comfortable with their expertise and what they're good at. And now here all of a sudden comes um, some different technology to change the game. And so, like I talked about in the preface to my book, AI Literacy Fundamentals, it kind of
Mm.
reminds me of when I was a kid growing up in Southern California. I would really love to be in the ocean. I lived in Los Angeles. And so you're out there in the ocean, and I would actually bodyboard. So I had like a boogie board, but I was
Yeah.
a little serious with fins and all that, and having a good time. But when I was a teenager, and then you're doing your thing, riding the waves, and then every now and then, out of nowhere, this massive wave comes. And so, when I was a kid, the instinct was get out of the water, swim toward the shore as fast as I can. But it didn't take me long to find out. I was a Canadian like you. I moved to LA when I was a kid, and so
Where
it didn't take me
where
long.
where did you
Oh,
grow up in Canada?
I grew up outside of Toronto, but I left when I was
Nice.
8. So
Oh, okay.
yeah.
So you're
Mhm.
young. Yeah.
Yeah, old enough to remember it, but young enough that
Yeah.
when I go back, it's nice to see family and friends, but it doesn't always necessarily feel like home so much anymore. But
Yeah.
California, I loved it and I really took to it. And so, like I said, the ocean was a big part of that. These large waves would come, and I would try to get out, and I would really get crunched by the wave. And so, it didn't take me long to figure out that. And what people would tell me in the water was you have to swim toward the wave. And so if you do, you kind of swim as fast as you can toward the wave,
Mm.
and then you duck dive it. So you push your board underneath the water before it crunches down on top of you. And so I kind of feel that that's what's necessary right now for AI. It is not just one wave, it's a series of waves. It feels like they keep coming. Every month there's a new massive feature or launch. And, so it can be a little tiring, but I think what we're trying to do is swim toward the wave. What does that mean? Well, learn it, try it, play with it, practice with it, see what it does, see what could be done, watch out for things that it doesn't do well. And so you're leaning into it, you're swimming toward the wave. And then, accepting the fact that these waves are just going to keep coming. I think the hype will end, but sort of like the dot-com bubble when we were
Mm.
kids,
Mm.
the internet's still here, even though the dot-com bubble burst. I think we'll
Mm.
see the AI hype bubble burst, and a lot of companies will go under because they're funded, but they don't come up with a viable product. But at the same
Yeah.
time, AI as a technology in all of its different manifestations and types and forms is not going away. So I think it's good for us to learn about it and try it out. And there's really no better way than uh, to practice with it, to actually do things and put it into use for you.
I went to the AI4 conference last year in
Oh,
in August in Las
right.
Vegas. Um, and they had, all the big players there, right?
Mm.
And
Hmm.
you you saw there's so many startups there. And I was looking at all the startups and all the booths there, and I'm like, how many of these companies will be around in 5 years? I don't know. Like to your point, there's going to be a point where, I think that the bubble is going to pop at some point. It's not, to your point, it's not going away, but having that many players in the game, I don't think is something that's going to last.
No, it won't. And, they're each trying to do their own thing. Many of them are what we call, AI wrappers. So basically, they're just sort of software built around the foundational models. They have scaffolding. They're trying to potentially connect those models to some kind of a unique data set. They're pointing them in certain directions, right, as it relates to disciplines and tasks that can be done. Maybe one is specializing in
Hmm.
home staging. Maybe another is specializing in, a different kind of an instance. And so, what will be interesting to see is how many of them will uh, continue to be viable long term, as you point out. What other changes will some of the major players make that might, in one broad stroke, render a whole host of them irrelevant? And
Mm.
I think that we've seen that already from time to time with some of the major launches and announcements by the open AIs and Anthropics of the world. And I don't know if the startups worry too much about that. I mean, I'm sure they do in a sense, but the game with startup is to fund possible big bets. These are swinging for the fences. We're not talking about trying to play it safe anyway. So I think that's part of the game, and I don't think
Yeah,
that
they know what they
that's
signed up for.
yeah, exactly. And some of them will make it, and then they'll make it big. But time will tell which ones do and don't. And in the analytics space, we're seeing a whole host of these new, call them AI first analytics tools that are popping up and growing. They're not just fly by night operations. They have hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue and they're growing. I'm
Hmm.
talking about companies like Hex or TextQL. Of course, Sigma has been around for a long time and has pivoted into the AI apps space. And so these
Are those the
are,
leaders? Are those the leaders in the AI analytics space?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, they are. Those are the ones that I just mentioned. There are, I think, ones I would consider to be leaders. But then you also see, for example, Snowflake launching Cortex Analyst, or Databricks with their Genie, and so,
Hmm.
and then of course Tableau with Tableau Next, and we have Power BI with Copilot. So is there space and room enough for all of them? I mean, we certainly see a lot of different players in the visual analytics space, right? If you look at the Gartner Magic Quadrant, it isn't like there are just one or two players and the rest
Yeah.
don't make it. So I think that there's room for a lot of different types of approaches, and certainly that's what we're seeing today. So time will tell which ones will continue to thrive and grow, and which ones may get acquired or just go away.
Yeah. So is AI literacy the new data literacy?
It's funny. They're two sides of the same coin, right? Because AI, well, the dominant paradigm in AI today is deep learning, which means that you have multi-layered deep neural networks that have been trained on massive amounts of data.
Hmm.
And of course, now they're applying or those applications rather, are referencing our data. So data and AI today go hand in hand. And so when we talk about what do people in organizations or society in general need to know, and what skills do they need to have, what attitudes and behaviors do they need to adopt, to me, you can't have one without the other. So you need to have data literacy and you need to have AI literacy. And I don't think today it makes sense to try to separate them. I think that they're
Yeah.
kind of part and parcel the same thing.
I had Dustin Shimmick on my podcast a few episodes ago, and we
Mhm.
talked about he does the data jobs report,
Oh,
and
nice. Yeah, I've seen that.
yeah, and so he ranked currently what are the top skills in
Hmm.
analytics job postings. He took AI aside. He didn't count that as an analytics skill, right?
Right.
Debatable whether that could be in there or not, but he took
Yeah.
that aside, okay? And so at the top, no surprise is SQL, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Excel is still up there in one of the top skills, right? And so I would consider those to be mandatory skill sets. If you're an
Sure.
analyst, I think you need to know Excel, you need to know SQL. Do you think AI is in that same realm now of if you want to be an analyst, a data analyst, you need to know AI as well as SQL and Excel?
Saying no AI, how to know AI, that's a very broad statement. Um, Here's what I tell my students at the University of Washington. I teach at the
Mm,
Foster School of Business in the MSBA program.
mm,
I say to them, you need to understand the core principles of analytics, and the tools, the ones you mentioned,
mm,
as well as others, are still very valuable and important in the marketplace today. They're going to be hired by companies that need them to know how to use these tools. But if they learn them without understanding what's at the intersection of those tools and some of the AI applications that are being applied to them today, then they're going to be left behind. They're going to miss out on, frankly, a golden opportunity to leapfrog people in the field like me, in my generation, because I think that organizations need employees to be able to help them evaluate and understand what is useful in that intersection in order to remain competitive. So that's what I tell my students.
So I have a slightly different perspective on this, and I want to know, get your thoughts on it.
Sure.
People like us
Hmm.
or we have, well, you've been around in the AI game longer than I have. Okay, so but I'm saying gen people like me who
Hmm.
I'm new to AI. Okay, just the last few years. I've worked in the analytics space
Hmm.
prior to AI, so I know how to do things by myself, right?
Right.
If you were to give me a project, I don't need to reference AI or leverage it to get my to do the project. Okay.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think, and you said that younger people may be able to leapfrog us, but I feel that
Hmm.
we have an advantage because we know what it's like to work without AI, and now leveraging AI to help us be more productive
Hmm.
helps us the most because we know what to look for and we
Yeah,
have the ability to kind of audit the
sure.
output and guide it and steer it in the right direction.
Yeah, totally agree. Here's the issue with that. And I just saw some interesting statistics by OpenAI. They put out some stats around, usage.
Mm,
And I'm almost 50 now. It's in a couple of years for me. I'm in my late 40s now. So if you look at my age group and the usage rates, it's dramatically lower than for people in their 20s and 30s. So
mm,
while I agree with you that the potential there, if someone with our level of experience were to be willing to dive in and relearn and
mm,
remap their understanding to some new technologies, that's a huge opportunity. And you're right. I think that we can then go even farther with it. The problem is that many don't. They don't want to. They're afraid of it, as you pointed out at the very beginning. But here's where I think companies can succeed the best, and that is by okay. Did you watch the
mm.
movie F1 with
Oh yeah. Great,
Okay, yeah,
great
great
movie.
movie, right?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So here you have, two Formula One drivers. One is this seasoned curmudgeon coming out of retirement, kind of old school. And the other is this new upstart, super talented, raw
Mm,
skill. Okay. So what works best is when you team them up, when they get
mm,
over their generational gap and their difficulty perhaps interacting with one another, since they don't always do things the same way.
yeah.
But if you can find a way to team them up, I think that's where you're going to get the true results. So companies that are avoiding the critical mistake of ceasing to hire entry level analytics professionals, that bring them on board, new hires,
Mm,
people
mhm.
that have been on campus over the last few years. They were freshmen when ChatGPT came out.
Yeah.
Like they've had to figure this stuff out, and they've been willing to because they were learning anyway. So okay, hire them.
Yeah.
Don't listen to the executives that say we shouldn't be hiring entry level. Why? Because when you bring them on board, you pair them up with someone like you and me with a little bit of more gray hairs,
Mhm.
and we will do, I think, do great things together if we can find a way to partner together. That to me is the true formula,
And
from F1. So yeah.
yeah, no, that's a great analogy. And also those entry level hires are going to be your future. You and
Yeah,
I are,
right. Yeah,
and how many more years are we're not going to be around for 30 years in that company, right?
right.
These
Exactly.
young people are going to, they have a long career ahead of themselves. So you got to invest in your future as well, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
and at a societal level, you get worried about like de-skilling. This has been well studied in factory settings where the human workers are no longer doing, let's say, certain kinds of welding operations. That's been taken over by robotics and automation. Let's say over the past few decades, and so humans don't know how to do that anymore. Do we want to have a society where humans no longer know how to analyze data on their own? I think that would be a big mistake. So I think we each need to, have cognitive vigilance and remain engaged in our critical thinking.
yeah,
And to your point, we need to really bring into the discipline and into the field these younger professionals that need that experience, that need to be able to interface with people with more experience to learn the ropes, because then 5 or 10 years down the road, we'll have a robust bench and pipeline of talent. And I don't think we want to see that go away.
that makes sense. Do you think um, these universities are teaching AI to pro I know you teach at a university, right?
I do,
So,
yeah.
so I'm assuming you incorporate AI there, but do you think most universities are doing that?
I think you see a wide spectrum. So, I'm in Seattle. This is a tech hub.
Yeah.
University of Washington is a very tech forward, tech savvy school.
Mm,
And they've really taken on, I think, a very active role. If I think about the administrative staff and the dean and the program managers that I interface with at University of Washington, there's very much been an encouragement to
mm,
me as an instructor to find ways to bring a healthy balance and a perspective and hands-on practical application of AI into the classroom. They have
mm.
not shied away from that. They've actually been really asking each one of us as instructors to look into that. However, I think there are other schools, and we've seen this where they literally ban generative AI use on campus and in the classroom. And so that would be the opposite extreme, let's say, because it is a very tough question. I mean, there is a lot of data out there that suggests that that generative AI isn't always so helpful in the learning experience, especially in the hands of someone that doesn't know how to maintain cognitive vigilance, that suffers from what they call metacognitive laziness, basically saying they're not even really evaluating what it means to lean on these tools and what it does to their own learning experience.
Yeah.
So I think educators are right to be worried. I think universities that ban it, I understand that. I just think it's not going away. So I question the the strategy. I think that if you don't expose the students in your programs to what is happening in industry and in the world around us and them, I think you do them a disservice. So,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I think you need to present it as something that needs to be treated with caution. It's a powerful tool and it also can backfire. So I think we need to look at that in a balanced way. And I think that universities that do that, I think are serving their students well.
My wife is a dean at a K to 12 school, and
Hmm.
it's a private school. And so I asked her if they're using AI. I mean the students, and she said they're not. And
Hmm.
as I asked if the teachers are teaching them, she goes, they're not, and they're not equipped to. They don't know how
Hmm.
to. So I told her, okay, I can come in and I'm not an expert. I'm not like you, okay? But I'm of the philosophy that I learn by doing.
Hmm. Hmm.
Actually, no, you know what? I learn by teaching.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Because what for me to teach, I need to know what I'm teaching better than who I'm teaching. And so
Sure.
I learn it first and then I teach it. Very short turnaround there, but I can do it. I've done that in Tableau. That's how I got into Tableau.
Hmm.
I was kind of, learning it as on my own and then teaching it to others, and that's how I got better at it. So I take the same philosophy with AI, and I told her, I'm like, okay, you know what? If you want me to help out, I'll create like a quick training for your teachers to teach them how to teach your students AI and how they should use it, and maybe even create some guardrails for how to use them and whatnot. And so that's what I'm trying to do and work with her on.
Wow.
And I enjoy that because um, it helps me understand it as well. And I
Hmm.
think this is important for educators and for the students as well, because what's going to happen to them, these students, when they get to the real world? AI is going to be there, and if they don't know how to, they're using what they may say that they're not allowed to use AI, but do you think these high school students are not using AI when they're going home?
Well, I think the studies show they are. It's very difficult to know, and in the sense of applying another kind of application to let's say a homework assignment. Those are sort of notoriously problematic. So I'm careful of like accusing any student of cheating. But you're right in the sense that they are using these tools, whether they say they are or not. And you're also right that teaching is a forcing function that causes us to, if we take it seriously, um, improve our own knowledge and skills to be able to impart it well and accurately, and in a way that others will grasp it and understand it. And this is really, if you follow the news, like if you have a Google News feed for AI literacy, that term, that phrase, I don't know, two out of every three articles or even more are all about K-12. So AI literacy as a term crops up more and more in in education for young people, and I think that's because schools and the education system is realizing that they need to make some changes in order to adjust to
Yeah.
how the world has changed. And education, it's notoriously slow to change. The
Yeah.
curricula can take decades to change, in some fields more so than others. Let's say mathematics might take an act of Congress to get any topic added or taken away from the body of knowledge that gets imparted to kids. So you need to try to find a way to be flexible within some of the more rigid frameworks that exist in education. I'm not myself an expert in K-12 education, so I can't really speak to it. I just know that I think it's a good idea to teach it because these technologies have very real risks to kids. These technologies, as you pointed out, are relevant in the job place for which we're supposed to be preparing them. So I don't see how you can ignore it. I think it needs to be, um, I think it needs to be taught. And yes, that means the adults in the education system also do need to learn quite a bit. And that
Mm.
in and of itself, I would say, is the largest really kind of education and skill gap of our time, of our era.
Yeah.
And you don't overcome that overnight. It's going to have to take time and a lot of effort and hard work from talented, dedicated people. People like you volunteering to go into the classroom, technologists, educators getting together and comparing notes and figuring out how to move forward and having a sense of urgency about it. I think that you see that because there's a lot of competitiveness amongst nations, amongst companies, and so in a way, competitiveness can be a good thing. We saw that with the Olympics, of course.
Mhm.
There's a dark side to it, so we need to be careful about that. But I think also what we're trying to do is prepare the next generation. We're leaving them with a lot of problems they're going to have to solve, and so we have to give them the best toolkit we can give them to face some of those challenges and solve them.
Because there's a proper way to use AI, and if they're not taught the correct way to use it, then they may get sloppy with it, right? You don't want to develop those habits, and so if they're using it, teach them how to do it properly, and that's just the reality. It's like going back, like you said, when the internet came out.
Hmm.
Back then, people said you can't use the internet for you to do your research or whatnot, right?
Right.
But if you were to say that now, the people would be like, why not? Like that's
Yeah.
impossible not to.
Right. And if we look at our track record, you have the internet. That's a good kind of benchmark to compare. How well did we do
Mm,
teaching kids and society about the internet? I think the scariest comparison to me is social media because I just think we did a very poor job. And maybe in some ways we didn't know what it was and it was evolving, but that's true of AI as well. I just know for sure that social media, I just, my kids, they're not kids anymore. They're in their 20s. And I watch them go through the school system and the really the first kids born with iPhones in their hands, or not exactly, but pretty close. And social media was a very toxic thing for many of them. You see Australia banning it for, I think it is, kids under 16. And is that the right decision? Is it not? I don't know. I just know that if you look at the outcomes, they're poor, they're negative for kids. So um, that's not acceptable, right? So we have to find a way to make sure that AI is not incredibly harmful to them. And I don't know if we have all the solutions and answers to all of that yet, but I think helping them understand what it is and what it isn't, and how to use it and how to avoid using it in its manifestation today, it has to start with that. Probably also some regulatory guardrails in place to prevent the most harmful forms of abuse of the technology. And that gets into the legal system and the regulatory
yeah.
system and whatnot. But I think as in terms of the education system, we have to let them know what's a deep fake, what are the sorts of things that this means for them in their overall media literacy about what we're
Yeah.
interacting with and what we see in front of us. How does that change now that some of these models have the capabilities they have? Those are important questions, and we need to teach them that.
So we talked about AI literacy, but what
Mhm.
does that mean? What is AI literacy?
Yeah. So, again, AI itself is a broad umbrella term. So is AI literacy. I mean, to me, what it means is you understand what AI is. And for that, I think we're focusing right now on deep learning, although, which is, of course, neural networks. But of course, as you know, having learned analytics for some time ago, this also incorporates machine learning. Some
Mm.
of the models and algorithms we've used that, don't have multiple layers of neural networks in them. And then also even beyond that. But I think it's just understanding what it is, first of all. Okay. Also understanding when we're encountering it, when you unlock your phone screen by looking at it, when you interact with a recommendation on Netflix. These are all examples of deep learning implementations. And so knowing that that is, first of all, what's being used, I think that's a starting point. And then also being able to use them where they can be helpful for us. That's a component of AI literacy. And then probably the most important component is to be able to critically evaluate them and their outputs. And when are they trustworthy and reliable? When are they, not? And that to me is just a huge imperative for really anyone in society to be able to critically evaluate AI outputs, and a big part of what it means to be
Yeah,
fluent in AI. Mhm.
yeah. I think AI won't necessarily take away our jobs as data analysts. I think it will reshape what we do, right? Perhaps some of the manual tasks or things that we will may be automated,
Mhm.
um, and the AI may help us with that. And I think what will happen is it'll open up opportunity for us to spend more time doing some of the more strategic work, right? Um, I think the fear there is for people who have not been used to doing that. They may not know how to do it, right? And so if you're somebody who's, I'm not talking entry level, I'm saying
Mhm.
somebody
Mhm.
mid-career or senior, and they're looking to leverage AI and get started, how do you start? What do you do? And how do you then redefine your role
Mhm.
to make you more productive in
Mhm.
this AI world?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that we are all wired to want to be valuable. We're all wired to want to make a meaningful contribution. And we get used to doing that in certain ways. And then the world changes. And then that might mean we have to adapt and adjust and change what we do to add value. When Tableau and Power BI first came out, this was the promise for IT professionals that they no longer had to build every chart and dashboard for a business, that the business users themselves in the self-service analytics wave could
Mm.
take on a lot of that work. Well, what would that do? Free up the IT personnel to take on more strategic tasks relative to the data systems and architecture and things like that. And so I think the same is true. It also does mean though that there's a remapping maybe of what humans do and what jobs look like, what job titles exist. And I just fundamentally believe, kind of like Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor from I think the second century. What he pointed out was that at the end of the day, you just have to kind of trust yourself that whatever comes down the road, you have the tools and the wherewithal to figure out a path forward for yourself. And that takes a feeling of security and confidence in what you can do. And instead of feeling that you need to continue to rely on the same sorts of activities that you have always done, I think that we're in a situation now where we all have to be willing to rethink where our value lies, not as human beings, because that to me is inherent, that we all have inherent value as human beings. I more mean in terms of the economic value we provide for organizations, perhaps, let's say it that way, maybe.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, that's going to look different. It will. I do think it will.
Hey, well, look, it changed. Like you mentioned, Tableau and Power BI, that reshaped data visualization and the way we do our job, right?
Right.
Self-service analytics, right? That was what sold a lot of people. I think that mentality's kind of shifted now, right? Um, and now people are looking at AI and saying, "Oh, I can create." Like, do we need dashboards? Is there
Right.
still is that still something uh that's required, or can I just use AI to create my own visuals, ad hoc questions, and give me the answers? How do you think
Yeah.
business intelligence fits into this
Right.
equation?
You know, dashboards, I mean, they're wonderful things. You at a glance can see a whole host of different aspects and elements of a process. You can interact with it and very quickly and easily and leveraging our visual cortex, see what's happening. I don't think they're going away entirely. I do think we've overused them in the last 5 or 10 years. And in many cases, we served up dashboards to people that just needed a single answer. And so in those cases, maybe that's not necessary anymore. Perhaps it never was, but there's a very simple way now, to use natural language to get answers to your questions, provided you can verify and validate, their accuracy. So my point of view is that dashboards are not going away entirely. I think that they're going to diminish in use somewhat, but that they're going to continue to find their use in a more particular case, which is that you really do need to see a few different angles at once and quickly interacting with one chart to, let's say, filter or highlight the other has a particular value when you need to explore many angles and avenues very quickly. And you don't want to have to type out every single question. What about this region? What about that region? What about last year? And you're sitting there typing like crazy, or perhaps even dictating, using voice.
Hmm.
Um, it might still, in many cases, be easier to see the whole picture, sort of like the way you drive a car. You still need to see right away, how much gas you have. I mean, all these indicators, warnings and things of that nature. So business users still need that. They need that bird's eye view of what's happening. They don't need it for everything though. And like I said, I think we've given that solution that's been a tool that we've overused.
Yeah.
And so it's going to continue to be used, but hopefully in a more effective way, while other tools are leveraged for different uses for which a dashboard is not particularly well suited.
And that's not a bad thing.
No, I don't think so.
I think that's net positive, right?
Totally.
Um, at the end of the day, what we do in data visualization is tell stories.
Mhm.
That's what, like, just because you know how to create a bar chart or a line chart or a pie chart does not mean you know how to build dashboards. Building it, there's a art form, there's a methodology, there's best practices, how you put it together, how you use colors, shapes, sizes, all of that thing, putting it all together to tell that story.
Mhm.
And what makes it so effective is it interprets or translates the data for the audience or the end
Mhm.
users, the stakeholders, so
Right.
that they can look at the visual translation and understand the data,
Mhm.
whether no, regardless of their level of data literacy. And that is what you and I, as the developers of these dashboards, are able to do is create that story, right? And so that storytelling aspect, I think, is still something that AI can't replace. It's still a
Mhm.
very
Mhm.
human function. And actually, I think it's probably even more important now.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I see data storytelling as distinct from dashboard building, but what they both require is the human element. And so familiarity with the user, with their concerns, with their goals and aspirations, those to me are aspects of their ingredients to the overall equation that just can't be neglected. So my students and I, we've been learning Tableau and Power BI and even building dashboards with Databricks, for example. Well,
Mhm.
we started to use Claude Code. We built a Python dashboard. We ran it um, in GitHub CoSpaces to see what it would do. We
Mm,
compared it with one that we had built ourselves from the ground up.
mm,
And in a matter of minutes, a couple minutes, maybe less, it had fully built out an interactive dashboard on the topic and the same data set that we were using. And so the first cut, the first output was not very good. It was remarkable that
mm,
it could do that, that it could code from the ground up. What was produced was truly, I mean, remarkable. I mean, to be in a field for as long as have been and to see it create what it can create is to me mind blowing. And so
mm,
I don't mean to take away from it at all,
mm,
but it's also true that my students looked at it and they said, "Well, that's amazing, but it's not very good." And so then what are we going to do to refine it? What are we going to do to continue to work with it to get it to look like what we want it to look like? And then at some point, was it easier for us just to make it ourselves? Those are the kinds of questions that I think we need to ask ourselves. Um, but just because it can't make something as pixel perfect as you or I can, I think we make a mistake um, to cast it away. I think we make a mistake to ignore it because the capabilities continue improving. And, for those of us like myself who embraced the low code or no code tools of the past 10 years,
mm,
there's an amazing opportunity to be able to create code like we can now, to be part of a process that generates code the way the AI coding assistants can do for you today. It's really unbelievable. So I think that that's compelling. That's something we need to really look closely at and find a way to understand how we can use it. And then maybe there are some instances where that would be better, and maybe a pixel perfect dashboard isn't what we need. But at the end of the day, you're right. The AI assistant does not itself understand what it means to be human or what it means to have certain concerns or aspirations. And so that's the part of it that we can always bring to the table. And I think that often that's the difference between so-so and great, um, of an output.
there's an emotional aspect to data storytelling that makes it effective.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's what AI can do.
Yeah, and it may never. I mean, I think the question is, can we use it to achieve the emotional impact that we're looking for? And is it easier to do that than it is to choose a different path, use different tools? And that's going to continue to shift. And so, you know, you have this sort of centaur or cyborg model where the human and AI components are working together hand in hand, as opposed to, completely relinquishing the tasks to machines. So that I think
Yeah.
would result in a somewhat impersonal output and outcome for all of us.
Yeah. Now, this is a great topic, great discussion. What can you tell us a little bit about your book and
Sure.
or book?
Yeah.
I mean, you have multiple books, right?
Yeah, well, it's so funny you say. I mean, I've spent since I left Tableau in 2018, I've written, I guess, about 8 or 9 of them, and so it's so interesting, right, to be sitting here at the end of a decade of writing and to now be presented with these tools, And so I
Mm,
think that it's interesting. There's an opportunity there that I'm still looking into to find a way to tap into that body of knowledge in a different kind of way than we have in the past. But the books have all been complementary to the courses my organization teaches. We customize them for our clients because I believe that custom training on your data, your charts, your use cases is totally different than just getting some maybe more generic version of a course. So that's what we do. AI Literacy Fundamentals is the most recent new one. I also put out a second edition of Data Literacy Fundamentals last year. And the idea with AI literacy fundamentals is how do I help people join this AI conversation? Because I think it behooves them to do so that they can be a part of helping to shape and direct the way things are going, instead of feeling left out of it, instead of feeling afraid of it, instead of feeling that it's not for them. I think that it's important to tell people, well, you already are using AI. Here's how.
Mm.
Here's a little bit of what it's all about. Here are some myths and misconceptions to try to dispel for them. So that's what that book is all about. And, I have to thank Ali Torben. She did an amazing job on the cover design. She did an amazing job on the diagrams throughout, from front cover to back cover. And
Mm.
I'm really lucky to have had such a talented data and graphic arts minded person contribute to the book in the way that she did. And it made it a lot of fun for me, actually, to see some of my words and ideas come to life through her creativity. So
Yeah.
that was one of the most fun things about the book to me.
Yeah. She was a guest here on the Data Nerd podcast as
Oh,
well.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
Allie's the
it
best.
was
Allie's the
great.
best. I'm really lucky to have been able to work with her for as long as I have. I guess coming up on 3 years now since she joined uh, Data Literacy, the company.
Yeah,
And
great.
as I said, we haven't, yeah, we've been very lucky.
So how can people get in touch with you? LinkedIn, is that the best way? Connect with
These
you there?
days, right? For better or for worse. I mean, Twitter, nope, not really. And all the other ones have come and gone for me, from Clubhouse to
Mhm.
the other ones now. What is the other one? I guess there's Blue Sky. I'm on it, but I never use it.
Yeah.
There's, yeah. So LinkedIn, yeah, definitely LinkedIn is the way to go. And they can find me on my website. Dataliteracy.com is really where you can find what we're posting and putting out there. There's a few other things now. We got the Data Freelancers platform, which I really love. There's so many people, so many talented people out there who are hanging up their own shingle to offer their own, consulting and freelancing services. And, I'm really lucky to have a few dozen of them have joined. And so, kind of handpicked them and brought them in. And so Data Freelancers is a new platform we're putting out there. So if you know anyone that could benefit from some of the talented Tableau, Power BI, SQL, there's some data engineering expertise there as well in the mix. And so you can check that out. There's a little referral page for people to refer companies, and they get, a part of the first statement of work. So that's good for them. And of course, this we just launched a little assessment called Data Foundations for AI at df4, the number 4, AI.com, df4ai.com. And it's a place where organizations can say, hey, is our data ready for all this AI? What do we need to do to make sure it's ready to go? What do we need to do to make sure that when AI is pointed at our data, it actually gives us the kind of outcome we want? So those are a few places to find me. But yeah, for now, LinkedIn, for better or worse, that's where I spend most of my time on social media.
No, great. No, I'll put all those links up in the show notes. And
Okay.
it's been a pleasure having you on. And hopefully, I know last year you were at the Tableau conference. I did not
I
get to
was,
meet
yeah.
you. I
Oh
know you
yeah.
messaged me, you saw me, but you
Yeah,
didn't get to get in touch. I'm still I'm not committed to this year yet. Whether I'm
sure.
attending or not, still a question mark, but we'll see. Are you planning to go?
I don't know. We haven't thought that far ahead. We've been so heads down on a few things. I think I missed the opportunity to submit a presentation proposal. So I love San Diego, and it was really nice for me last year. It was the first time I'd gone in, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And it
Yeah.
was great to see everyone again and see the community so vibrant still after all these years. And so it was a highlight of the year for me last year. So I'd love to go. I just don't know yet. So yeah, time
Yeah.
will tell. We'll
It's
see.
always a good time.
But if so, we'll have to meet up
For
and
sure.
grab lunch together for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, definitely. All right, Ben, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and leave a rating or review. It really helps more data nerds discover the show. You can find all episodes, plus exclusive merch like the Data Nerd hat, and more at thedatanerdpodcast.com. Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and embrace your inner data nerd.